Jarrett has been the fastest car in qualifying, one of the fastest in practice. Jeff Burton had only 2 fresh tires on that last stop, and he's done everything to keep Jarrett in his mirror. 2 miles to go.
You've got to go back a long, long way for Kyle Busch. 2008, the last time he won here at Daytona, and now he is tantalizingly close to that victory. But here comes Harrison Burton for the Wood Brothers. He's being pushed by Parker Retzlaff, and the 23-year-old from Huntersville, North Carolina, is at the front of this.
Burton won his first Winston Cup race on CBS. He comes off turn 4, and he's going to win the last Winston Cup race on CBS. Jeff Burton over Dale Jarrett, Rusty Wallace, and Mark Martin, winning the Pepsi 400.
Jeff, your little boy, has done it! Harrison Burton wins in Daytona and does what his uncle had done.
And as I hung up the phone, it occurred to me he'd grown up just like me. My boy was just like me. And the cat's in the cradle and the silver spoon, little boy blue and the man on the moon. When you're coming home, son, I don't know when.
Welcome to another episode of Victory Lane Vibes. We are your hostesses with the mostesses. It's Jared and Art and Carl and Peyton. And we are here post Daytona and Milwaukee. But before we get into this weekend shenanigans, and no, this is not a prelude to an ad read, I'm going to pose a question to the group.
No, you don't get a warning for those.
Yeah, we just dropped those. So a question that I had for the three of you, because I'm not going to give my input, I don't think. Right now, today, in the Cup Garage, who would you say are the 4 most impactful drivers? And I'll let you decipher if you want to take impactful as on the track, off the track, or somewhere in between. But who would you think are the 4 most impactful drivers right now?
So I can go first since I was the one who came up with the prompt and I've had the most time to think about it. So for context, we asked this on our Twitter and we got some really good answers. So for me, I think my top 4 have to be Denny and Brad being driver owners. I think that's such a unique position to be in, right? We've seen only such a small handful of guys do that in NASCAR, and to have 2 doing it at the same time, I would put those 2. Then I have to put Larson in the 5 up there just because of a combination of on-track talent, a giant fan base. I'm going to leave it at that. And then the fact that he does do other series. So he does the dirt stuff, which I don't really care for, but he did do the Indy crossover, which is a big deal. And that really does put eyeballs on the sport. So, and he wins a lot, right? He's in one of the best cars, got one of the best crew chiefs, the best team. So I would put him there. And then the last one is I'm putting Bubba, which might be a shock, might be a bit of a layup, but I've said on here before that I think he is able to move numbers that other drivers can't. He can go into rooms that other drivers can't. He has the social cachet that no one else in the garage has just by him being himself and who he is. You know, you see on the promos, Bubba will be on a promo and people are like, oh, why is he on there? He hasn't won a race in a year, whatever. I'm like, but he gets eyeballs on the sport. Like, people talk about him. They talk about his team because he's on that team. So for me, he's up there. I don't think there's any other driver that has the social cachet or pull that he does. If NASCAR was ever going to get back to a mid 2000s boom where there's like, you know, Jeff Gordon on Saturday Night Live, right? Dale Jr. in music videos with Jay-Z, right? Like that level of hype, like he would be one of those guys that would be leading that and pushing that. So for me, those would be my 4. So Denny, Brad, Larson, and then Bubba.
Carl.
Oh yeah, I'll go. So in no particular order, unfortunately, some of this mirrors what Arthur was saying. So I would definitely say Denny Hamlin is probably one of the most important guys in the garage. I think it's so crazy that a handful of years ago, Dale Jr. was like, where do these new owners come from? We need, new young owners, especially guys that are in the sport, to like lead them. And like Denny Hamlin has come out and been that guy. And I hate that he gets so much hate because as an owner, I love Denny Hamlin. I think he advocates for everything that fans want. And I think that he is trying to be extremely transparent. I think NASCAR doesn't really like that. So yeah, Denny Hamlin, I think, because I really feel like the future of where the sport goes is hinging a lot on conversations that he's a part of, along with Brad Keselowski and Justin Marks behind closed doors. I would say probably the number 2 most important guy, and you can interchange either one of these, but I would say Kyle Larson or Chase Elliott. I mean, you gotta put butts in seats, you gotta put eyes on TV, you've got to sell shirts and diecasts. And that's not to downplay either of their accomplishments. Chase Elliott is extremely talented. Kyle Larson, we have to hear every week, is the greatest driver in the world. And he had the Indy thing, which also was, really big and things like that. And I mean, I think that they are the superstars of the sport. They're, if you, just in the same way that, years ago, the only guys, if you ask them on the street to name a NASCAR driver, they would probably say like, Dale Jr., Jeff Gordon, and Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott and Bubba Wallace are like those 3 that they'd name, and Bubba for probably more notorious reasons. I would say the number 3 on the list is the guy I just mentioned, Bubba Wallace. I think that he has certainly helped move the sport, for good or worse, however you want to see it, away from just the headlines that report on the sport, right? He's moved the sport away from the FS1s and the, NASCAR.coms of the world and stuff like that. And really put it, out in the open. I think about like how when he won Talladega in 21, granted, there was a lot more context to that. Right. But I mean, he got tweets from like all over the world, all kinds of like celebrities congratulating him. And I think that a lot of people like know who he is. So much like even when I go to the barbershop, like they know who he is. They have no clue about NASCAR, but they know, Bubba. So I think that's really important. And number 4, I would say important in the garage, because it's hard to value like what's actually important, right? But I would say Shane Van Gisbergen is probably one of the most important guys in the garage right now. I mean, he is just a story in and of itself. It's a global phenomenon. I think you have way more eyes from outside of the U.S. watching the sport because of him and his performance, especially this year, winning so much and then going to Cup full time next year. Justin Marks was incredibly smart to grab him and make that transition. And I mean, like I said, just the announcement this week, was on every platform, was huge for NASCAR. The engagement on that. So when you look at that and you stack that up against, if they, the announcement where like Michael McDowell is going to Spire next year, it was crickets pretty much. And then you compare that to Shane Van Gisbergen is full-time next year in the 88. It is probably like one of the most clicked on articles they've had all year. So I would say those are probably my top 4 right now.
Peyton?
I didn't think about Shane. That's a good one.
I was going to say that was a great sort of curveball there. So mine are pretty much kind of boring, and I decidedly did not use one just because I didn't want to come off of as more of a fanboy than I currently am. Obvious reasons. Chase Elliott. And when I was thinking about this, I was thinking under the criteria of popularity, on-track success, but also if they got injured or had to take weeks off, where would their impact be felt the most in terms of the day-to-day operations of the sport, or their popularity, or just simply eyeballs or butts in the seats. So obviously, even though the guy doesn't say anything or do anything interesting, he's very talented, seems like a nice enough guy. Chase Elliott, I can't tell you anything that the guy's ever said in his life that's interesting, but he has a huge appeal. When he was injured last season, there was a notable drop in ratings and then a noticeable increase in ratings when he was back in there. That's huge. I do not think there are any other drivers in the field who you could seriously say the same about. There may be some that would come close, but yeah, Chase Elliott's ability to yield such a large fan base that its impact is actually felt by the sport, I think that makes him extremely important. Kyle Larson, once again, obvious reasons, popular driver, and you have the crossover appeal. I went to the Indy 500 this year, as I do pretty much every year, and the number of Kyle Larson T-shirts was extreme. And you compare that to when Kurt Busch ran in 2012, I believe. I'm trying to remember. I was actually at that one as well. Kurt Busch. When Kurt Busch ran that race in 2012, there were not as many commemorative T-shirts. It just was not as big of a deal as when Kyle Larson, went and did it. And the crossover that he has with the dirt racing people, the fact that people are seriously questioning whether he's as good as Max Verstappen, even though Max Verstappen can't seem to win a race. But we'll say that for another day. Denny Hamlin, once again, hugely influential in terms of being a team owner and then also driving for another extremely successful team. The voice that he has with his podcast, he does, in terms of you want to talk about senior leadership in the sport, you think about a Kevin Harvick, where their influence in terms of guiding what's right and wrong in the sport or having that sort of senior leadership voice, I think his value is extremely high in that aspect for Denny Hamlin. And then also, this one was a little bit tough. I would say Brad Keselowski, even though he's not necessarily outspoken in terms of, when he does speak, he says wonky things, but let's just talk strictly about when he's talking about the sport itself. Typically, his words do carry weight. Also being a partial team owner or a part owner of a race team, and then also his long career of success, I would say make him probably one of those drivers too, where if he was not in the sport or disappeared, I think his impact would be pretty strongly felt. Like I said, I considered putting Bubba Wallace in there, but I sort of put more weight into hey, whose voice in terms of inside the sport carries the most sort of weight in terms of the sporting side of things. And then also who would have if they took a week off, who would you actually see a marked decrease in viewership? And I think at least 2, if not 3 of the 4 I listed would have that effect. And I don't know if you could say that about Bubba Wallace.
So while we were recording, I did some quick research, air quotes research. So I think this may only interest Carl and I, but so one of my metrics I thought about was the diecast effect, right? Because I feel like that's a good sign of your marketability. So I went online on those website. I just looked up Larson, Elliott, Bubba, Denny, Brad. Denny and Bubba have 38, 39 items, just items listed. Brad has 61. But Larson is only behind Chase Elliott by 1. So for reference, Denny has 39. Kyle Larson has 143 items. Chase Elliott is 144. Now that is just single items, right? That doesn't include the multi-packs. But the reason I think that's important is because I did the same experiment a few years ago, before we even did the show or whatever. And it might have been Larson's first year, second year at HMS. And it was still Chase was 150, right? And Larson was 30, 40 or something like that. So he's just he's caught him. And I feel like he's going to surpass him at some point. We haven't seen Larson miss a race that we knew he was going to miss, right? The only race he's really missed was the Charlotte one, but we were all kind of on pins and needles, and his fans were all on pins and needles hoping he was going to make it. Right. So yeah. I need him to get suspended so we can see what the ratings look like. That's what I'm getting at.
Because Chase's suspension was so big that after the green flag dropped and Corey LaJoie was running 78th or whatever, that they were they just started running ads about next week Chase Elliott comes back.
Don't worry, we promise he's coming back.
They focused on that storyline for 2 laps, and then they just immediately went to next week at Sonoma, Chase back.
We promise.
They were please don't stop watching. So.
And then the last thing, before we got on, I asked ChatGPT this question. I just wanted to see what it would spit out, right? And so I phrased it as, tell me the top 4 most important drivers in the Cup garage. active drivers. They said, so I think you'll be surprised by some of these. So they first said Denny. They said he's a strategic mind, experience makes him a contender. They said Larson for his versatility and aggressive driving style, and ability to win on a variety of tracks. But in the next two, they go Truex, dominant force, especially on intermediates. Yeah. And then the last one, who I would have never put in this list, but they did, was William Byron for his consistency and ability to close out races. So computers are saying that the 24 is one of the top four.
Well, I don't know, because they haven't done that since before May. So
I don't disagree.
I guess, man. Jesus Christ.
Who likes William Byron because they like William Byron?
That's the thing. That's the thing. Like I was trying to, when we were thinking about this question. Jared, did you give your 4 yet? Because I feel like
I didn't. He's sitting here. He's just sitting here, just.
I think I'm going to abstain.
Art straight up, like, okay, we can go, but Art straight up stole Jared's time. But yeah, I was really trying to think about the Hendrick guys, and I was like, man, all four of them are important from a fan and merchandise and interaction aspect. But like the 5 and the 9 are there by themselves, and it kind of, in a lot of ways, their fanships kind of rival like the 24 and 8 days, just in the same team. But that's what it feels like, I mean, because you have some people that are fans of both, but you have some people that are fans of one and not the other. And like, yeah, it's pretty. Anyway, I'm sorry, Jared. I apologize.
No, you good. I wouldn't call it a big show, but we got some stuff to handle. So thank you all for your participation on that. And then I'm going to do the show backwards. So we'll start today with the truck series over in Milwaukee. There was a doubleheader there for ARCA and for the Craftsman Truck Series. Ty Dillon wins stage 1. Christian Exis wins stage 2. Lane Riggs proves that front row can win on a cheated up weekend, even if it's not the Cup cars that get it done. And he gets his first career victory in the truck series. I believe it's the 5th father-son duo to win in the truck series, the most recent since Brad Keselowski and his dad both won a truck race. Honorable mentions and finishes. Sanchez finished 4th. Taylor Gray finished 5th. Corey Heim finished 7th. Colleagues New Toy, Daniel Dye finished 8th. And Raja had an abysmal day after getting a penalty before the start of the race for an unnecessary adjustment or an unfinished adjustment, or whatever the ruling of the rule is. Raj finishes 18th, putting him 5 points out of the transfer spot in the playoffs. Thoughts on the truck race?
Of all the truck races I've ever watched, this was absolutely one of them. I just think these tracks I'm just not a fan of, because this track was giving me New Hampshire vibes, and I just don't like those style of tracks. Like, I'm sorry, like these big, wide, flat tracks where I just feel like nothing happens. Like I watched this race wire to wire, flag to flag, and I can't tell you anything about it other than Raj stalling out after getting up to like 18th. And I thought that Scott Riggs' son winning was cool. Like those are my only notes on this. So I'm not a fan of these tracks.
Peyton?
So if the rumors that this track may not be returning next year, I think NASCAR's hatred of the state of Wisconsin needs to be studied and analyzed and observed. And I think they should file up a suit with the Supreme Court, because they've taken away Road America and given that to Chicago, which I'm certain people in Wisconsin absolutely love. I don't know a whole lot about the Midwest, but I'm certain there's no rivalry between, Chicago and the rest of the Midwest. So they need to look at that. And then also, this track is fantastic. I love these big, stupid, flat tracks where nothing actually does happen. I agree with Arthur. Nothing happened. But listen, it at least gives me the feel that things are happening. When they flare out 4 wide and don't pass each other, it's the best thing ever. It's the illusion of things happening. And that's what I love. And there's the strategy, there's managing your tires. It's got the feel of like sort of a short track race, except they don't actually make contact with each other because, that would be too interesting. But generally, I thought it was a good, after the stench I was covered in yesterday of having to watch a plate race, it was good to wash myself in the clean waters of Milwaukee and observe what pure racing is. Just drivers fighting the track, fighting each other. And the gentleman, I appreciate Lane Riggs. After I think maybe on my second appearance, I just roasted the guy for getting into it with some part-time driver. He comes back and he listens. He listened to the podcast. I know he did. And he said, "You know what, man, Peyton's right about everything he said." And he straightened up and flew right and then won. And then like a jackass threw out his shoulder, which apparently happens a lot. My only other observation outside of Raj having a mediocre day is it'll be interesting to see where Ty Majeski goes from here, because I think this was one of his big ones they needed to circle to ensure him getting to the next round. This definitely helps finishing second. I really, really like Ty Majeski. So glad to see him have a good run. I just wonder if there's just any chance. I mean, the next race is Bristol. I'll have to look at his track record there. It's short track, which he does okay on. But, yeah, hopefully they could have found something that says they said they were fighting very, very tight conditions throughout the race. Apparently everyone else was. But, yeah, I enjoyed it. It felt like a pure race, which after Saturday's and Friday's action, I was definitely needed. So, shame that they're never going back and that the state of Wisconsin is closed for business.
It's really funny. Pete mentioned soul cleansing. Foreshadowing. Carl, what do you think of the truck race?
Hey, man, I did not watch it because I didn't know where to watch it, and I was also at work. Also, I abstained from consuming any products that come from the state of Milwaukee. So, there's
Milwaukee's
also
not
that.
a state.
Milwaukee is.
I wasn't gonna.
Oh, damn!
I was like, I'm gonna let Peyton have this.
The state of Wisconsin. Let's back this up a little bit. I mean, Milwaukee can go to hell too, but yeah. I mean, from what I understand, there was having a hard time to pass. Caruth was Raj. I guess they had the issues with adjustments on the truck and couldn't get it right. Cool. Happy for Lane Riggs. I was a fan of his dad. I felt like, his dad was the next big thing until Ray Evernham decided to play grab ass and screwed him over. And that's a deep cut. Yeah, it's a deep cut for some folks. So, I mean, that's cool. Happy for Lane. I've never seen anybody throw out the shoulder before celebrating a win. So that's it. That's all I got to say about it. So.
Then we flip back to Friday, where the Wawa 250 at Daytona, Justin Allgaier sweeps the first two stages. All hell breaks loose, leaving Ryan Truex, Mr. Part-Time, to win the Xfinity race Friday night. Chandler finishes second. Parker Kligerman finishes third. Sheldon Creed didn't finish second this time. He finished eighth, and Justin Allgaier ended up finishing seventh. This race was nuts, and I didn't think it could be outdone, but boy, were we sure wrong. But please, NASCAR, save this package for the big tracks. I'm still very upset about how we had to watch the Xfinity Michigan race, but it felt like home on Daytona. A lot of beating, a lot of banging. It's really interesting how they can't attach, like they can't like lock bumpers. There it is. There's the word. They can't lock bumpers in Xfinity. So it's really interesting how they have to just like tap to build that run, which is kind of aggravating when you're watching the onboard camera and you keep hearing the throttle go in and out. But it was a good race. It was a really good race. excited for Ryan Truex. He's a much better driver, it seems, this year than his brother is, but we'll leave that for later. With thoughts on the Xfinity race?
I don't know about that one, brother.
I said this year.
All right. I'll
You got two of them.
I'll go since I'm already talking. Yeah, I just lap one we're wrecking hard, bro. Like we just started. Like I hadn't even sat down yet. I got my chips in one hand, I got my drink in the other. Like I'm ready. I'm waiting for the popcorn to come out the microwave, and it's just calamity, just destruction, and some ARCA brakes thrown in too from the back of the field. Just send it and pray to whoever above. That was chaotic. It was interesting seeing some of the playoff guys struggling at this track. Cole Custer really struggled. Austin Hill got in one of the wrecks, and he really struggled. My MVP for the race, honestly, was probably Anthony Alfredo. I really enjoyed watching him. He was super aggressive, and he had a really good car. And it wasn't until I think that second to last wreck took him out. I think he might have had a tire go down or something, but like he was just really, really fun to watch. And he was one of those few guys willing to make aggressive moves, which I can always appreciate. But he wasn't making aggressive, stupid moves, which I feel like is a really smart distinction to make. I'm a big defender of plate racing. I think if you show people, Friday and Saturday's races, I think you would say, these are two very different styles of just plate racing, right? It's the same track, but like, I just feel like I can defend this style of racing with the Friday race so much easier. And I can make the argument that it's a skill, which I will talk on in the Cup race. But, the only downside for me really was just it finishing under yellow again, right? Green, white checker again. All right. And I hate it for Allmendinger. Like, I'm not a huge fan of him, but like, he was really, really good as well. And him and the 48 were hooked up for most of the night and were really good. And then it's just a bit of a deflating ending, right? But it's not anybody's fault. Like, it just mistimed the move. But yeah, Ryan Truex winning is a great story. Like he 2 wins. Maybe they need to get him, some more seat time next year. Maybe give him find him something full time where he can, I can see him every week. But yeah, it was a good race though. I really enjoyed a lot of it. It was aggressive. There was chaos, but it was enough chaos, right? It's like ice cream. Like I want like a bowl and a half of ice cream. This is for you, Peyton, for your desserts. Like I want a bowl and a half of ice cream, but I don't need 5 bowls of ice cream. And Friday was that perfect amount. It was just enough. And then Saturday was way too much.
Just wanted to jump in because you mentioned Alfredo. They mentioned on the broadcast where they're a small team, so they have to pick and choose how they spend the money. And they cashed out and got an ECR engine for Friday night, so they had the big horsepower, and it definitely showed. So it's always cool to see like the smaller teams, like the things they have to do, with the funding that they have to choose what races that they're gonna send it. And like you mentioned, Art, Alfredo made sure he used every grain of horsepower to make sure he could get a good finish, but it ended up not being what it should have been. But yeah.
Real quick, I was just gonna say, when you said that, reminded me. We had Natalie on earlier this year on her, I think YouTube. She talked about that where they went and bought like an A grade or a top tier motor. It was also for Daytona. I think it was for the February race. And how like I don't know if it's a crew chief or whoever, but they like really banged the table to make sure she got an A grade motor, and it showed like she had a really good run in that race. So it's interesting, like you see these cars and they want you to think it's a spec series, but it is not a spec series by any stretch of the imagination. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Shout out Natalie, congratulations! I don't know if we told you on there, but congrats!
Oh yeah, that's right. Got a little baby. Good for them. Go ahead, Peyton. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, you're fine. I don't have much to contribute because I was up at 4 a.m., 4:50 a.m., had to get a run in. So I fell asleep on the couch while this was happening. So when I started the race, they were wrecking. When I woke back up, they were wrecking. When I fell back asleep, they were wrecking. And then when I finally woke up, they had wrecked some more. So I can't give a nuanced view on the race. The question I do have is, And Art, you did mention it, and I don't want to derail us too much. What does the potential future for Ryan Truex look like? I mean, because he won his debut race, not his debut race, but he won his first race. Was it last year at Dover, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, swept Dover this year and last.
Yes.
Yeah. And then won Daytona.
We're talking a 32-year-old, which, as someone who's older than that, I'll tell you 32 is not that old, but what the heck does his future look like? Is he good? Like, what do we think about him real quick?
Just an all-guy.
I guess I can lead off. They got his biggest op out the organization. His biggest op is going to run at Haas next year, which leads to hopefully he gets the full-time seat. So I know this year got a little wonky because of Almirola and the funding and the races being chosen and John Hunter Nemechek and the whole 9 yards. But I feel like if you dwindle down the people you give the keys to, that'll lead to some doors opening. So hopefully maybe with Martin stepping away, he can talk. The name escapes me, Carl. I know you know the person who owns Bass Pro, but maybe he
Johnny
can
Morris.
holler at Johnny, be like, "You trying to throw my brother some ducats so he can race full time."
That's what I thought was going to happen at some point.
Yeah, I thought that's going to happen this year.
Yeah.
And that concludes my review of the Xfinity race.
You know what? I respect the honesty, right? Like there's been races where I came out. I was like, "Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I ain't make it." You know, I'd rather you tell me that than pretend and try to sleepwalk.
Bonte, love you, Bonte.
Wow, put names.
Yeah, I'm not gonna tell y'all. I ain't watched the race, but I'm just gonna say real quick. Corey LaJoie. No, I'm sorry. let me stop, bro. He ain't done nothing to me, bro.
You really?
Yeah.
He's from Milwaukee. He's from the state of Milwaukee. You got enough reason.
The state of Milwaukee. Look,
man, live.
Yeah. He cool. Anyway, am I supposed to talk about the Xfinity race?
Yes.
Oh, brother, I'm gonna tell you something. I work for a living, so I did not watch the Xfinity race.
If we don't.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I watched some highlights of it. Y'all have already said everything that I was gonna say. The record and stuff like that. Apparently, AJ Allmendinger, grown ass man, definitely felt some type of way after the race. Hey, you win some, you lose some, bro. I mean, definitely, there was some colleague news this week, and I'll say. I don't know what has happened exactly, but that organization has certainly taken a step back in the Xfinity Series, which is unfortunate because there was a time when they were like the guys on play track. So I hope they find their footing on that. But yeah, I mean, I'm happy for Ryan Truex. He's been trying to make a go of it for a long time. I mean, 12 years. I mean, he was part of the Michael Waltrip Racing young driver program in like 08, 09, something like that. So I mean, it's been a long, long time for him to get to this point. And I don't see him in the Cup car anytime soon. But if they can make it work and he can run the full schedule next year, by all means, let him, man. I mean, hell, what do you got to lose? So besides that, nothing else really. That's my take on the Xfinity race. Hey, what's going on, guys? Carl here from the Vibes crew. You know why you're here, and you know why I'm here. I'm going to talk to you for a second about our good friends over at HomefieldApparel.com. Now, if you don't know who Homefield is, maybe this is your first ad read you're hearing, maybe you skipped them somehow, or maybe this is your first episode you're listening to. Welcome, for one. For two, Homefield is a collegiate apparel company, so they work with over 80 school sports programs to deliver the best original vintage designs for those schools. These aren't images that you just found on Google and reprinted, right? They also got into vintage motorsports apparel this year with the Hendrick Motorsports collection. To start things off, they had the Tim Richmond, Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson designs, all fantastic stuff. They also launched a Errol McLaren IndyCar team collection, Some great stuff over there. As well as, speaking of IndyCar, they have an entire collection dedicated to just the Indy 500, a great historic race, been running in Indianapolis, the home of home fielder, for over 108 years. Now, we were talking about Harrison Burton winning for his dad, right? Giving him that gift. Well, you can't exactly win Daytona for your dad unless, I guess, maybe you're Harrison Burton or somebody else. I don't know. But what you can do, it's getting cooler. College football season starting. You can get them a college football kickoff box. Now, what this box is, these are uniquely one-of-a-kind crafted items. These are designs on these shirts you're not going to find anywhere else on the website. In this box, you're going to get a t-shirt, long sleeve shirt, hoodie, socks. Who doesn't love socks? Your dad loves socks. A koozie. And again, over 80 programs they've got that from all kinds of schools, ranging from, Arizona State, Arkansas, Washington, Tulane. I mean, all kinds, dude. Come on, you can come through there and look. But they also, if you really love your dad, they also have the Platinum Football Kickoff boxes. Let me tell you about those real quick, too. So, the Platinum boxes, just like the other ones, are designs you're not going to find anywhere else on Home Field's website. They're specific to the boxes. They include a t-shirt, long sleeve, hoodie, socks. Who doesn't love socks? Again, a hat. I love hats. You can give me your hat. I don't care. Koozies, also fantastic, but they also include the Platinum Perk. And what that is, the Platinum Perk guarantees you early access and 20% off all premium products for the school that you choose that box for. So you literally, it is a gift that keeps on giving. It's not even December. And like I said, you have new gear for the entire year at a discounted rate. That is fantastic. So head on over, homefieldapparel.com. Find something you like. Find something your dad likes. You can use our code VLV24 at checkout for 15% off your first order. And hey, make sure when you get something, you tag us on Twitter. Let us know what you got. Let us see what it's like. I've done my spiel. My dog's in the background. He's going bananas because he's crazy about these deals too. So we're going to let you guys get back to the show. But again, it's homefieldapparel.com. Yeah.
We'll we'll move to arguably the most nuclear topic that I think I've ever participated in our group chat. The Cup race last night at Daytona. First, just want to catch y'all up on the penalty report. It came out before the race that Denny got an L2 penalty for an engine inspection infraction, which cost him 75 driver's points, 75 owner's points, and also 10 playoff points, seemingly handing the regular season championship to Chase Elliott. We'll find out more next week. Gabehart also got a $100,000 fine. So essentially what the gist of it was is TRD accidentally sent Denny's race winning engine from Bristol back to California, and they started tearing it down before sending it to NASCAR to let them check it over before tearing it down. So I guess homie don't play that, run me my ducats and my points. So somebody's eager beaverness at work cost Denny a chance at the regular season championship. So thoughts, opinions, anybody want to expand on that? Or that's a big penalty.
It's
I
huge
I understand,
penalty.
like I get it, but like that's a big penalty.
120%. And look, there's no discussing it. I commend TRD for saying, like, hey, for self-reporting or whatever, and try not to hide or anything like that. It couldn't have happened to a worse guy. Simply because like the public already hates Denny for whatever reason. And so, like, not to get sidetracked or anything like that, but there's a bit that not John Mulaney, another comic that's like John Mulaney does. I can't think of his name right now. The guy that sleepwalks. Anyway, there's a bit where he's like, you can tell who did or didn't read the book based upon how they receive this news, the context of it. And so, like, I go and I look at the penalty report. I look at, Pockets' tweet, and I look at, NASCAR.com, and people are like, oh, I always knew Denny Hamlin was cheating, X, Y, and Z. And it's like, that's not even what happened. As a matter of fact, they told on themselves. They didn't try to get away with it. Versus a couple years ago when a certain 4-car team did try to get away with it, got in trouble, and got their penalty overturned. So anyway, it's unfortunate for sure, for Denny and all that kind of stuff, but it's not detrimental. I mean, it's not the end of the world. At that $100,000 to Gabe Hart is insane. I hope somebody else is paying that for him. And, just all the more reason to go win. What is it? Watkins Glen is the opening race. All the more reason to go win at Watkins Glen and, just transfer out of the first round and do the whole I beat your favorite driver thing, even with a penalty. So, which he won't do anymore. His dad said don't do it. But yeah, so that's my take on it.
Yeah, I feel like this was one of those where they figured the cover up would be worse than the crime. I said this in our chat, but you're better off just self-confessing. I mean, just based on the nature of my understanding of what they did, this does not seem like this gave them any competitive advantage, right? It was just like a procedural mistake. And, honestly, it doesn't really matter. Let's be honest, the playoff regular season championship doesn't really matter, right? I think they wish they didn't happen, right? Because it was a distraction and they didn't perform well. But if they win in the first round, it will not affect them the rest of the race. I mean, even with the 75 points, I'm sure he's still high up in the standings. I think he's in the top 5 in the points still. So I don't worry about over the long term. This team has been when they're hot, they are damn near unbeatable on a week-to-week basis this year, and then when they're cold, they're just ice cold. So they have no middle ground. So I'd be worried about that way more than this penalty.
You mentioned the cover-up being worse than the crime. It does make me wonder, because this was a pretty harsh penalty. It would make me wonder what sort of penalty they would levy if they just didn't report it and got found out. Otherwise, I feel like it'd be pretty harsh. NASCAR absolutely has to do this because although this was seemingly harmless, what they were doing, this would be a big area for exploitation. Essentially, just the whole idea of teams just sending off engines, not letting NASCAR take a little peek under the hood, see what's going on. So yes, you have to enforce that harshly. Also, I wish they would enforce their sporting code as aggressively as they can enforce their technical guidelines. I understand the technical guidelines are black and white, but hey, you think in terms of putting on, a quality product on your racetrack that you might also enforce driving standards to the same sort of degree. But hey, heaven forbid you have to make a judgment call. But yeah, I will agree with Art in the grand scheme of things. Yeah, not a huge deal. I will say it must be nice to be Art where $100,000 out of your pocket isn't a huge deal. But once again, someone else is going to pick that up for him, I imagine. So, but yeah. And then also, too, like Carl was mentioning, in terms of a driver where, it was like, oh, the idiot fans will just latch on to, couldn't have been anyone worse except for anyone else who drives a Toyota, except probably Truex. They'd probably give Truex a pass and say, "Oh, bless his heart, he needed it." They were trying to give him something special for his send-away season, but yeah.
All right, so time for soul cleansing, ladies and gentlemen. I'll tell you why.
This man,
it's Daytona. We watched all of the calamity and the excitement and the red flags and the turnstiles and the flippity flips, and Corey LaJoy being Corey LaJoy is probably the best way I can explain that. But I'm gonna set the scene and then we'll do the race. So, red flag for Josh Berry's flip, and I looked at the pylon and I was like, man, a Harrison Burton win would cleanse my soul. I got tomatoes thrown at me, rocks, boulders, shoes, pans, pots, you deserved them. Reactions. I got drummed. It was I had to duck and hide behind a table. It was really bad. But then when it happened, everybody's like, "Oh, it's your fault, Jared. We blame you." But then the tide turns like, "Oh, this is actually kind of cool that Harrison Burton wins the 100th win."
No.
We're
all shaking our head no. We're all shaking our head no on this video.
That Lee got the call of the century with his daddy right beside him in the booth. That his mom almost fell off the pit box because she was so excited. Personally, outside, if you're like a NASCAR fan and you're not a fan of 2311 Toyotas or anything, prosperous in this sport, you enjoyed last night's race.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's not what we're talking about, though.
You're
See, this is what he does. He blends two arguments together.
I'm not blending
It's like
anything. We have a whole show dedicated to these things that we can say these parts of.
I'm
giving the setup for the race.
Man.
As a
you see how he
NASCAR
tried to
fan.
couple those together? You see how he tried to couple those together? No,
As
go
a
ahead.
NASCAR fan, you enjoyed the finish last night, and you were happy that the person who won the race won the race. Now, is it some bullshit that he's 37,000th in points and he is automatically in the playoffs? Absolutely. That's bullshit.
That was my joke, damn it.
He gets his first win in Daytona. He gets the win where his dad and his uncle did. And he gets his first win after an employer said, "Get out. Josh Berry's better than you." I think that's kind of cool, man. So, Harrison Burton wins the Cup Series race in Daytona. And now we unpacked why I got things thrown at me.
Hey,
Arthur,
Carl.
you go first.
Carl,
Yeah, what's up?
Can you,
What's up? Yeah.
I know you. So behind the scenes for the folks, Carl's messing with a soundboard. I need you to add, the audio where the woman goes, "You need to leave."
Y'all, you gotta relax.
I need that. I need that. I need you to put that in the show.
I can send you that video because I have it on my phone.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel.
You need to leave. All right, go ahead.
I guess I'll start again. Sorry, I don't mean to keep starting every topic. I'm not that selfish.
No, I'm making you alphabetical.
Yeah, there are some people that I have to call out for this race. One, I agree. Let me start. I can compartmentalize my thoughts on this race. On the one hand, yes, I love Wood Brothers finally getting that 100th win. Like, I feel like I was in college or middle school. Not really, but it feels like I was in middle school when like 99 win came, and I'm now trying to buy a house one day, and they get 100. But I'm happy they got it. Like, that's a historical team. I want them to have this achievement, so I'm happy for them. I am happy for Harrison. Like, I've no beef with Harrison Burton, the human, which is more than I can say for some of his contemporaries that he works with. So I'm happy for him, happy for the fam, his fiance, his mom, happy for Jeff, because I know it's got to be tough watching your son do the same job as you and just struggle for like 3 years. Fired. And then get fired. And it's very public, right? Like, everyone in your world knows about it. That's got to be really hard, especially when you were really good at your job, right? Because Jeff Burton was not like, a scrub. Like, he was a legit race contender. Race winning contender. So I'm happy for that. I'm so happy for that they had that moment. Like, the video of him like fist pumping in the booth, dope. I love that. Okay. All that's great. My only issue is the fact that, as Jared alluded to, this man was literally last in full-time driver points, and now he competes for a championship. That's literally my only beef.
500 points.
Listen, he won that race, and he's still over 200 points behind the playoff cutoff, just in terms of points, right? So you could win a race and be over 200 points behind. So that's my problem. I'll save the playoff Discord for later, but so I'm happy for them. I think that's super awesome. Like, I would buy that diecast in a heartbeat. Like, I think that's such a great moment. And yeah, like, Lee on the call, like, chef's kiss, bro. Like, you are a master at work. That's another sound bar clip, Carl. Get that one in there. Like that one, like, he's just so good. And the call at the end was great. Like, he was great all night. I thought all race long he was really good. So there's some people I need to call out. If we were doing letter grades like we did in the off season, man, some of them would just go straight to in school suspension. They would even send you home. Like, you'd go right down to the dungeon wherever you were in your school. As much as I praised Anthony Alfredo's aggressiveness in Xfinity, Josh Berry, you were a menace. And I can say that now because you're healthy and okay. Like, I'm so happy you're okay. But brother, you were a menace this race. Like, all through the first stage and into the second one. Like, my God, I was just praying that man was not anywhere near the front or near the guys that I was rooting for. In stage 2, the 7 and the 10 just decided, they want to unalive, a third of the field, it feels like, and just damn the consequences. This was a peak. Like, I know he's gonna get lights too bright and whatever. But like, I'm not gonna use him for my lights too bright. But like, this is your peak. This is peak Corey LaJoyism. And it's not just the fact that you destroyed, a bunch of the field, but your car's damaged, whatever. You're coming out the pits, you're riding around on the apron, and you're a half lane up as the whole field's coming around trying to LePage us. Like, it's so bad. Brother needs to be, he needs to be delivering Uber Eats on a bicycle at this point. Like, anything with a motored engine, I think might be too much for him right now. That was really, really bad. Another guy on my list is the 5. The 5 was a dart without feathers this race. He caused 2 wrecks, and you should probably give him credit for the 3rd. That one's kind of iffy.
Yeah, people in our Twitter mentions. He did that. I said that.
You have to explain that one to me, because I saw what that gentleman saw, and I was like, I don't know what they're talking about.
Look, the one that y'all talking about is the last one. That's the one that you can make an argument here or there, but the first 2, like, you're directly responsible. And like, yes, I just said at the top of the show that you're one of the 4 most important people in the Cup Garage for me, but good Lord, you are bad at this. Like, you are so bad at being a plate driver. And this just reinforces my opinion that this is a skill, because if it took no skill, like, you would be great at it. Like, you're great at everything else. Like, you're able to do that well. But like, brother, like, oh my God, he's just so bad at this. And the fact that he was able to survive and like keep going was just ticking me off, because like, you're doing the things, like, you're doing the damage, and yet you're still skating by, and like, your car is fast and it's like all jacked up on the side. Like, oh man, like, brother, you get in the sim, do something. And then the last thing I was just gonna hit on is we got to talk about these cars flipping, right? Like, we've seen 4 flips in a week, literally in a calendar week, like 7 days. And it's funny, they had the wreck before, and the booth is pumping up NASCAR and gassing them up, saying, "Oh, we took out the grass and we made it safer. No, we were worried about these flips." And then 5 laps later, or whatever it was, like, "Oh, we're gonna see a terrible flip," and probably the scariest crash I think I've ever watched live. Like, I thought that man literally was no longer with us. Like, I was so afraid for Josh Berry. That was terrifying. I'm so glad he's okay, but these cars are clearly not safe. And if there's one constant I have 2 constants on the show, it's bad mouthing the Gen 7 car, and it's bad mouthing the playoff system. And they gave me 2 first on this week. But it was a great race in terms of the entertainment. Too much damage and calamity for my taste, and this is one of those races where it's really hard for me to defend plate racing, because everyone is on the timeline saying, "Oh, this sucks. Oh, this is ass. Like, we should never come back here, blah, blah, blah." And I'm just like, actually, pushes up my glasses. There's a skill to this, and we should respect it. But then when they drive, like that, it's just hard to defend. But I'm happy for Harrison. I hate it for my driver, which we'll talk about later. But yeah, it was an entertaining race. Like, you did not yawn. You did not miss any green flag action in that race. So on that regard, it was a success.
Yeah, and for those who are wondering where Jer is, she was at the race, so she's driving back home, so she can't be on the pod. But I can only imagine how fire it was to be there in the stands and watch them essentially drive 3 wide the entire race before domestic terrorism was occurred and Homeland Security had to be called in. Carl, you want to let Peyton go first, or you want to?
Bro, I'm chilling, man.
Bet. All right, Peyton,
whatever
you
we
go,
gotta do.
and then we're gonna let Carl have his 15 seconds of fame.
So, man, there's a lot to unpack this race, and for starters, for me, I just don't know if I love this style racing. Like, at the end of the day, for me, it just felt like, and this was even before my preferred driver was caught up in a wreck, I just remember saying, what are we doing here in terms of this type racing? Yeah. Like, I will come out and say it, hopefully, and we can look at the timestamps, we're actually not going to, and that's the thing. You can say things, as long as you know people actually aren't going to do the research and fact checking, you can just say it. That's the beautiful thing when, you're not held to accountability standards. So I'm going to go out and say that I said before my favorite driver was caught in an accident, this is stupid. yes, there is a skill to pack racing because 100% agree with Art. Kyle Larson is not skilled with it. It is though that he has looked at his past struggles at this, said, you know what? I'm going to be more aggressive. Like, that's what all the good drivers do. I'm going to be aggressive. I'm the best driver. Max Verstappen could never do this. Watch me. And he was just stupid, cranked up to level 11. The moves he was doing, the level of aggression for no damn reason at weird phases of the race was spectacular. Like, it was though he just was put in a room and only given footage of Brad Keselowski and Joey Logano at plate races and said, this is how you got to drive. You want to be a winner. You want to be a winner, right, boy? And he's like, yeah, I do. I want to be a winner. And say, okay, you got to do this. Like when you see a guy who's got energy from 3 lanes up, you got to cut him off, smoke him, put him out. And that's what he did all race. So that was impressive. But it was, for me, and I'm glad. I was really hopeful that I would be able to be on today's show because I want to, and I asked some other folks because this race is getting very high marks on Jeff Gluck's was a good race poll. When I checked before church, there's only like 1,000 votes in, and it was 90%. And I went into the chat and said, like, what am I missing? Like, what am I not seeing here? Like, I go to Atlanta every year in the winter. I enjoy that because the track is so narrow that during the race, handling matters, and drivers will do things that let you see the level of skill they have. So watching them go 4 wide at Atlanta was mind-blowing because you know that track realistically is 2 cars wide, maybe 3, and they took it 4 wide. That was highly impressive. With this, the positioning doesn't matter because you're trying to just make sure you can save as much gasoline as possible. It's not as bad as it was earlier in the year, but still, it just feels like they're just burning gas, hoping you're not in the big crash. And then if the big crash happens before you need to refuel and essentially eliminates pit strategy, well, great. Now we've just pretty much assured that this is going to end with a bigger crash because now no one needs to hold back. And now it's all about getting track position because you cannot get it on pit lane anymore. And what hurts the most is this must have been, no, it wasn't even the anniversary of the 2001 Pepsi 400, but they were playing that clip again and just watching those cars race. And I watched that race as a youngster. The way they raced in the 2000s where the lines weren't as disciplined and cars could get runs by themselves. You may need help from just one other person, but there was just the way they raced, it was a lot more disorganized and it felt like a regular track as opposed to these just super long lines. I'm just sort of burnt out on it because it seems like all you're doing is just waiting for the big caution and hoping your guy is not caught in it. So I don't know what's going to take for me to fall back in love, but I challenge a lot of people to, hey, what was the highlights of the race that didn't include a crash and didn't include the finish? And I still haven't gotten a whole lot of feedback. And for me, I don't know. It's just not a great product. I'll continue to watch because I'll continue to watch everything NASCAR puts in front of me because I'm a shameless whore. But yeah, I didn't have fun, and that's even outside of the end race result. Yeah, great for the 21 team Wood Brothers. It has been a very long time since they've won.
7 years.
Great for Harrison Burton. I wish Albert saw going first because he says a lot of smart things. Carl says a lot of smart things too, but he usually speaks after me, so then I usually have to get back and agree with Carl later.
Say that first part again. What you just said?
Nah, keep rolling. Keep it rolling.
No, say that first part again, real quick.
Nah.
Listen, don't try to get.
I need to hear it. Let's say that.
Catch it on Spotify, Apple Podcast.
Well, wait. What you said was that Arthur says a lot of smart things. So.
So you were waiting for, you had that button noise ready to go. You just need reason to press it.
Correct.
You know what happened was he was asleep at the wheel, and he woke up when you said that. It was like, oh crap!
Well, I forgot it was unmuted. So
that's what happened. Peyton, to answer your actual question, I think, there are a couple things. One, it's been shown that the winner of the race drastically affects that poll, right? Like, if you're Denny and you win, that's probably like a 20-point swing, I feel like, right? So for the fact that it was a really feel good win, I think that definitely played. And then you have all of the emotion, right? Like coming out of the finish, and like one thing I didn't shout out, and I wish I had, was the production was A+. It was the best produced race of the year. So like that also plays a role into it.
Shout out to NBC on that. That was a smart decision. I don't know how much it cost them, but it was a smart decision like that. If we're going to have to deal with commercials during a race, the way they at least gave it to me was at least saying, hey, fans, we hear you, we value you, we will do it with minimal interruption and no full screen commercials during green flag. So I appreciate them on that. And also as someone who doesn't love Lee Diffie, and I can explain, it's nothing against him. He's very, very talented. It's just I've grown up with this man shouting in my ear at 8 a.m. when he used to do F1. Anywho, he did a great job, and I think the sport's lucky to have him. That's all I gotta say. I'll let you all continue to try to sell me on plate racing some more because I need it. Because
I'm actually what I was gonna say is I'm not gonna try to say. I think, and this is gonna sound so old man yells at clouds of me, and I hate it. I hate being like an old head when it comes to like this thing called NASCAR. But a lot of people language. But a lot of people that are watching the races now and are especially active on Twitter, a lot, not all, of course. Like I'm not, making sweeping generalizations, but a lot of people that watch the races now were not watching live in 2001, in 1998, 99, 03. And, and they may not be fans who care enough to go back and watch. Like now we got NASCAR Classic race. So you can go back and watch all those races. And they just may not have time, whatever. Like they can only fit in one race a week, whatever. And it's totally fine. And so to them, this is, oh God, I hate talking like this, but this is almost like fast food in the sense where it's like, it's greasy, it's salty, it's sugary, it's good. It makes me feel good right away. Like I'm at the endorphin kick. Like it is like this race is like it's like a TikTok basically, right? Of just like bam, 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 craziness, Rex, Corey LaJoy, bam, crazy flip, crazy call at the end, whatever. Right? And like that's exciting to them. But what's missed there is that nuance and the skill that these races used to have. And part of it is the stage breaks, right? Like ruin the strategy. Part of it is the way the cars are now. Like you can't get that 5-car breakaway, right? Like I remember, watching so many Daytona 500s where it'd be, 4 cars in a row and had a chance to win it at the end, right? But now, like they want every car to be within a second of each other because it looks great on TV and it looks great in pictures. He's like, oh my God, there's 35 cars within a second of each other. But when you do that, it just eliminates the skill factor, right? And like the ability to build up those runs and to spread out and to break away, right? Like that's what Dale Sr. would do, Jeff Gordon would do, Dale Jr. would do, Dale Jarrett as well, who I almost said there. But it's a different type of racing. And so that's why I get so frustrated when people are like, oh, this sucks, this is awful, this is garbage racing. I'm like, no, like there's so much talent when it comes, like you go back and watch like Dale Sr. and I get like, Dale Sr. is a deity at this point, but like if you go back and watch him like at like these, not class races, but like these qualifier, those 150 races, right? In like the 90s, or watch him, operate at Daytona or Talladega. Like you can't sit there and tell me that, it's just a guy with a brick on the gas. Like there's skill and talent. And,
100%.
And like, it's just not in an environment that's conducive for you being that talented. It's just, I have to push like a motherfucker and pray that like, I don't get wrecked or I don't get hooked, and I have to block every run because if I don't, I won't get stage points or like I won't be able to get back up because I don't have a car that is designed to allow me to get back up to the front, right? Like the famous clip of Dale Sr. at Talladega, his last win, right? He's in like 20th place with 5 to go. And he's just like, okay, I'm going to go here and I'm going to slice here and I'm going to go down here and I'm going to push here and then cut back here. And then he's leading the race with like a lap to go. But like, show me a driver in the garage that could go, like you put Dale Sr. in his prime in this car, he couldn't do that just because of the nature of the car and the setup. So I can't defend it. I defend the concept, but in its current state, like I just couldn't. I can't, and it's heartbreaking because this was my favorite type of racing growing up. It's like I love short tracks, mile and halves, whatever, but I loved plate racing. Talladega was my favorite track forever as a kid. But that's just the environment that it's in now. Is that you can't see what you and I grew up on in present day NASCAR.
Art, what you did here was beautiful. Not only did you agree with me, you also essentially said that I watched at a higher time, that I have higher expectations that you and I.
No, yes,
we're up here. We're above the frame. We're looking down on people. So thank you for not only reinforcing my feelings from after the race, but also, establishing that we're better people than the people who enjoyed this. That's beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Carl, are you gonna go?
I guess, man. In lieu of ranting tonight, I'm gonna go ahead and just fill in my time of talking about the Cup race with the soundboard. So here we go. As far as oh god, I don't know. I can't even do this bit because I don't have it all laid out like I need to. But anyway, as far as to Arthur's point, I don't know. What bothers me the most about play racing right now is my mic on? Yeah, okay. Is just this package, man. I don't know. Those guys can't get away from one another. I don't know how we recreate it, but it's like, yeah, I mean, you go back and you look at clips, just like having to go back, that a couple weeks ago, I did that thread real quick on Dale Sr.'s last 20 wins or whatever, like I said, because of the Austin Dillon thing. You go back and you watch old plate races, and it's like, God, those guys are able to drive away from each other. Like I said, having a good car mattered. You weren't pushing, just shoving your way through a guy. And all that's gone, and I think the craft has gone a little bit. I also think having to save fuel is also playing into it. I don't know, man. It just seems like every one of these races here, the last 3 years, maybe 4, it just turned into just a total wreck fest. And I also think that we need to do away with multiple green white checkers, or even any green white checkers at plate tracks. Point blank period. I think that it's kind of incentivized now that you get down to the end of these races and it's like, well, look, if you make a mistake, right? If you push a guy too hard, you clip a guy, you put yourself in a bad situation. If there's a wreck, you're just gonna rack them up again. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's not gonna be the end of it. And like I said, and hey, even if you do wreck, you might get lucky and be involved and be okay. So just have at it. So I don't know. Where to even start? Yeah, I think if you remove the connotations of the playoffs, which it is only NASCAR would reverse a rule that everybody was like, everybody was like, well, nobody below 30th in points is going to win a race anyway, so it's not really that big of a deal. And then guess what happens? That would only happen here. But it's like I was explaining to my dad, I was just so bummed about it because it's like, a lot of things for these teams hinge on making a playoff appearance as far as, sponsor, dollars and payouts to the team, things like that. And, you've got guys that have been working hard all year long, the 1, the 23, the 54, trying their hardest to make it in. And then, you've got a guy that's 35th in points that got lucky on the late race restart, got a good push, past Kyle Busch. The 8, for that matter, is one of those guys that, and now, all of a sudden, they're in, that's just like, if, I don't know, man, any baseball team you can think of, the Atlanta Braves, for example, because I hate them, went, 0-161.
Damn it.
Let the man speak. He's on to something.
We're on Braves slander time right now. Anyway, it's like if they went 0-161, they win the last regular season game, and all of a sudden, like I said, they're in the playoffs. So it's just very frustrating on that. But I mean, it's hard because it's like that was a great moment. That was a great finish. Lay Diffie getting nailed that call. I don't understand how his commentating was even a point of discussion last night, and people were pissy about it. Which is consequently somebody's getting my lights too bright because of that. Jeff Burton being in the booth. I mean, just overall a fantastic thing. Just bummed with the way it panned out for the 23. And, I wish they had a couple more laps because I went back and looked at the replay this morning. Even with a torn up the hell car, he was still moving right there at the end. Like, bro parted the seas to go from like 9th to 6th in like the last corner. And I was like, even with a red car, there was still a shot that had one more lap. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, plate racing makes me nauseous now. I'm not a huge fan of it. I understand, it plays a little bit into the bloodlust of the sport. You get big crashes, you get flips, X, Y, and Z. And you're silly to think that people don't watch just for that. I mean, or go just for that. There is, I won't say it's a huge denomination of fans. There's a denomination of fans that watch entirely for just the carnage, right? I mean, it is what it is. So they're the same guys that thought Denny Hamlin was cheating because they took apart his motor early, but still, and nonetheless. So, that's pretty much, how I feel about it. Like I said, the cup race was just a cup race.
This shit ain't nothing to me, you stupid piece of shit.
Oh, that's the wrong one? Yeah, whatever. All right.
So this was the sunrise and the sunset of the
soundboard. I'll build a better one, I promise. I meant to do it doesn't even matter. I can't find it. It's on my other monitor, which is a problem. But anyway, continue.
That's awkward.
Yeah.
So with that, we move on to the 2311 quarter.
That's a lot of nuts!
There we go. Found it.
Before we dive in, I just want to go back and say that Tyler's still the regular season points leader at this point. So, he hasn't lost anything or gained anything. He's still 17 points up on Kyle Larson. So he still has a realistic chance at winning the regular season championship. So hopefully that happens Sunday night. However, Bubba finished 6th. Tyler finished 28th. I've never been so disappointed in a good finish at probably my whole entire existence of watching this damn sport. There's it's senseless that you change the rule like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Right, yeah.
That makes sense. And then literally, this man was beneath Austin Dillon in points.
Oh my God. I think he was the lowest chartered car, right? 21 was the lowest chartered car.
He was the
he was literally last in terms of full-time drivers. He was last.
Yeah.
He was quite literally last, and it's even with his win currently, he's still last. He's 517 points behind Tyler Reddick.
I love it.
This man's in the playoffs, bro.
What a great sport.
So much. What a great sport. What a great system.
Part of me kind of loves this as well. I think Peyton did this in the chat, but like I kind of want this just to completely blow up in their face
at this point.
Oh yeah.
I really want I want Corey LaJoy to win at Darlington at this point. Like I want
on 8 restarts. I want 8 restarts. I don't want it to be a legitimate win. I want it to be like stupid. Give me 12 restarts.
Right.
This is what it's going to take for this system to break. Is it has to break all the way, and we're almost there. Like if they didn't rescind Austin Dillon's penalty, and then it was him and Harrison, and then someone else like Zane Smith or someone, even though I like Zane Smith, but some back marker wins at Darlington. Like this is what it takes. And I said this in the chat, and it says on my Twitter. But the people that defend the playoff system always go back to Matt Kenseth's title win. He only won one race. But he led the whole season as being the season that was so air quotes boring, even though I lived through it. It was not boring, but whatever. That they changed it. This is what we need. We need the opposite end of the spectrum. We need as gamified, as gimmicked, as WWE'd a playoff field as possible. And I need, I need Harrison to hook Kyle Larson on like Bristol and like stage 2 and just like take him out.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Like I need the ultimate shenanigans to where it's so bad. They're like, okay, we're gonna change in the offseason. We're gonna fix this. Like we've descended too far that even we can't defend this. Like that's what it's gonna take.
Yeah. And I'm not, and it's not out of the realm of possibility that like something like that happens in the first round, and you have two favorites, that are first round exits. You know what I mean? Because of something stupid. Like I said, let's say we have Watkins Glen, Watkins Glen, Atlanta, and what? Bristol in the first round?
Yeah, Bristol.
Yeah. So plenty of chance for just the dumbest things imaginable to happen. And like somehow Harrison Burton is getting lapped by Tyler Reddick and Kyle Larson, or Chase Elliott and Kyle Larson, and he just wipes out in front of them, wrecks both of them, and now all three of them miss the first round. Like, and we get like Daniel Suarez is like a cup champion somehow. Not knocking Daniel, not knocking Harrison, not knocking anybody, just saying. Oh God,
that is an insane thing to think about. That there's going to be a contending playoff driver who's going to be -2 midway through stage 3. Like at least one. There's going to be like you're going to have playoff drivers who are consistently a lap down most of their playoff experience.
It's so funny. That's like, so funny
because probably going to be the 2 car, and it's probably going to be. Boy who just won this weekend.
It's
I mean, hell, the 99 hasn't been.
Trackhouse as a whole, not even just Daniel.
Yeah, he finds his nuts when it's time. When it's time to hold off and try to fight for the lucky dog. That's the only time he seems to.
That's a lot of nuts.
Yeah, he seems to buck up when he's like, "Oh, wait, I got a gas pedal. Let me try to use it now because I'm gonna go lap down." That's the only time he looks tough. And I love Daniel. Like obviously, I love Daniel, but yeah, I wish he fought as hard to stay in, keep track position as well as he fights for lucky dog.
Yeah. Are we on the 23-11 corner? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. My bad.
Yeah, it's 23-11 corner, but it's just now given what Bubba's done the last month. How many points he back? 17. It's not insurmountable.
21.
There is a way he can still make it on points, barring there's no new winners. My plan of action is let's wreck Chris Buescher. Let's go ahead and end his night early. Obviously, the Toyotas have speed always at Darlington. Bubba's really good at Darlington. Watermelon Man won't be in contention for anything. And you make it on points. We just need an old winner. But I still have the hope. The hopium got me a Lewis win this season. I still have the hope that he can make the playoffs. But if he doesn't make it, is there self-reflection in airspeed? Do we take a look at the personnel and see if there's any situations where we could have not been in this position? I know 3 races offhand that I know very clearly had things gone differently outside of Rex, because you can't like Michigan was BS. Had Michigan not happened, had Kyle Larson not been a terrorist and been on a watch list that race, then we'd probably be okay right now. But it's really frustrating that the team puts 2 fast cars together. They both come to the track with speed, and it's always the one with the 2 and the 3 on it. They can't seem to find the front, find stage points, and be close to anything where it's time to matter when these green-white checkers happen. Like you're nowhere near the fight to try and get the win. So, if push comes to shove and Bubba misses the playoffs, does airspeed do anything to give him a better shot next year?
If I can lead off on this, we had a long and thoughtful conversation about this last night, and I'm opposite of a lot of people's thinking. I think that team is truly in its stride, And I think that there's not a lot to change, man. I mean, to be entirely honest with you, and I explained this to my dad, because my dad was, I was just like, when you look at the 45 to the 23, I look at, Tyler Reddick comes up through, Brad Keselowski Racing, a winning organization. He goes from then to Junior Motorsports, wins there, is in an environment where he can win, where he can make those gutsy calls, those decisions, goes on to RCR, wins there, and just kind of elevates, and he just builds that confidence to make those plays and those kind of calls, and he knows what he needs and how to get people around him. And then, that same time period, like I said, Bubba leaves KVM, he goes to Roush, operations already in decline. Like I said, an operation that year to year, they didn't know if they were going to be at the track. From there, he goes to RPM in Cup and, has a crew chief that, that doesn't really believe in him that much, the first couple of years. A program that, is literally just pick up, you pull it of Cup car parts, right, for a couple of years. And so, he's really only really had the last couple of years to try to find his feet to be a weekly contender. With Booty at that, I would say the last 2 seasons with this car and with Booty and all this kind of stuff. I'll say this: I don't think anything needs to change from a personnel standpoint. I think they've been firing on all cylinders. And I'll also say this: I think Tyler Reddick is a talent that's up there with Kyle Larson. Joey Logano, guys that are really hard hitters and are going to do great things in the sport. And I know it's unfortunate to say that, but I have not seen at any point in time, then or now, Bubba being on the same point. But that doesn't mean that he's bad or he sucks or anything like that. But I look at 21 points is the gap right now, and it's like, I can put together 21 points just on 4 finishes that had nothing to do with the car. And then there's 2 finishes where Denny Hamlin said both cars showed up and just were not prepared. Like I said, and Corey LaJoie is the cause of, I think, maybe 2 of them. Like I said, so it's just like, it is just tremendously bad luck. They have been in a lot of good positions this year. And sure, yeah, I do think there is something missing where they can't make that final step. They can't make the boss call. But, you look at, Daytona, they were in a position to win. That it went the way that it did right there at the end. I think he finished, 5th. Atlanta, probably had a race-winning car taken out by somebody else's mess. They go to, Phoenix the following week, and that was looking all right, and he got shunted or whatever. He couldn't recover from that. They go to Vegas, can't get the wheel off. Just a whole myriad of things. Richmond in the top 5 all night, spins out right there at the end or whatever. That's on Bubba. Okay, that's the first knock to him. Coda, it's Hamas terrorism with Corey LaJoie. Charlotte, they probably could have had a really great finish there, and, Fox has said, screw you, we're going home. Just all sorts of things. So, that's why this is so frustrating. Last year, it was like, okay, it's a combination of, crew chief driver communication and gelling and pit crew and all those other things. And it's like, that's why we're having a struggle to get into the playoffs last year. The year prior to that, it was just like the program's in its infancy. The pit crew is struggling. They're still finding everything out. Bubba's still learning all this stuff. And it finally came together this year. And there were just some moments where I was like, bro, this is really about to be it. And 2 weeks ago, Michigan, a race-winning deal there. And so it's just like, I think what pains me the most is like, if come, I guess, Sunday night, he doesn't make the playoffs, which I am sending an email to the South Carolina State Trooper Department that the 17 hauler has several points of inspection that needs to be taken off the road, put out of service for. It can't leave North Carolina, actually. Right now, I'm doing this as we speak. But, if the 17 makes it and 23 doesn't, a lot of people are going to look at it and say, well, it's because he wasn't good. He couldn't execute X, Y, and Z. And it's like, no, man, they have done exactly what I want to. And I think in any other alternate universe, I think if 2 things go right at the season, this is a multi-win year for them, and we're not having this conversation. It's just been a really shit year on luck. I hate that for them. And what I don't want more than anything to happen is for them to get so down on themselves that they fall right back to where they were in the beginning of 22 or the middle of 22 or whatever. Like I said, just take this and move on, man. So I don't know. That's just my feelings on it. But yeah, it's frustrating. He's been doing his damnedest. I look at the road courses performance for this year. I think Peyton, was it you last night? Maybe it's somebody else that said, like, there was a moment in Chicago where he legitimately probably could have won.
So that was Chianti, and I was actually saying it was a bit I think it was a bit premature to say whether he was a favorite to win. I think he had a very but I can't go on a limb and say anyone's definitely going to win after only seeing a third of the laps.
Okay, so you were doubting that on a Pro Level podcast. That's fine. Anyway, I can't. I'll stop. But yeah, I mean, like, even Chicago, it looked great. It's just like, bro. I promise you, I've said a million times with guys that I love in this sport, drivers that I love in the sport, not just Bubba, the numbers don't tell the whole fucking story. And this is it. So I just don't want anyone's takeaway to be like, oh, the team sucks, the crew sucks, the driver sucks. It's like, no, man, they just need a break. That's it. So anyway, this is akin to like a Kyle Busch 2012 season where he could have won like 10 races and nothing went his way. So, all right, that's it.
Baden.
I'm going to do my best to be succinct. Those of you in the chat probably saw me going through it. I was just ricocheting all over the place in terms of just how I feel about NASCAR racing, everything in general. So the thing that hurts me the most, good finish for Bubba yesterday, much like Nashville, doesn't really matter. And you listen to his post-race interview, and he sort of vocalized one of the things that I had seen and was glaring at me, which would be the prospect of his teammate winning the regular season championship and he not making it. And that hurts because I feel like 23XI does a very good job of bringing their drivers equal equipment. Now, we ask the question, what happens if Bubba does not make the playoffs? Well, the easy answer would be like, well, let's just replace him. Let's just replace the crew chief. Then the question becomes who do we get that's better? How do you find a better crew chief? What does a better crew chief looks like? And are you willing to essentially write off the first half of next year? Because it does take, even with a top flight driver and a top flight crew chief, time for them to gel. I would say the relationship between him and Booty, it seems like they are speaking each other's language. It seems like there are still times where I don't know if Booty makes the adjustments that Bubba's looking for, but I also don't know whether Bubba does a good job as other drivers may do in terms of anticipating what the car is going to need, not just right now, but where the car and track is going for the next run. That's something that Denny Hamlin does very well, is he's able to tell Chris Gabehart, hey, the car feels like this now. In 30 laps, it is likely to feel like this, so let's start adjusting for that. So that might be a two-way street. So you talk about replacing crew chief, but the thing is, so you look at his teammate and you say, well, he's obviously got a great crew chief because he's winning all the time. Billy Scott has done an okay job. I mean, his resume is not one that would jump out from you. Started his career at Michael Waltrip Racing, where he was the crew chief for Brian Vickers. And then beyond that, did some time at Stuart Haas as Danica Patrick's crew chief, and then just did Xfinity stuff in a different role on their team. There's nothing that sort of says like, oh yeah, he's going to be a championship caliber crew chief. So I think it's hard to pick and choose and just say, hey, we got to make a change just for the sake of change. That's something that I, as a outside observer, I really can't weigh in on. So yes, if you could wave a magic wand and say, yes, that the crew chief's the issue, then yeah, let's make a change. And if that will fix anything, but I just don't know whether that will fix the issues that they have. It's also the question too, do they view and put the same weight and emphasis in terms of resources behind Bubba as they would for Tyler Reddick? Because going into this, you can really tell that Denny really, really prizes Tyler Reddick's skill as a driver, which I understand. He is a A-level driver. On his best days, he is as good as a Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, you name it. Tyler Reddick has it all. I think Bubba, on his best days, can be a race-winning driver. But I think that in terms of the operating window, I think his teammate has a wider operating window where he can consistently keep the car in the top 5 to 10 most of the race with a car that may not handle perfectly. So, and that's one of the things I weigh with, and I spoke about last time, is when things are tough, you sort of want to assess, like, okay, how good is the team really? How good is the car really? How good is this? How good is the driver? And the thing that stinks the most with this stupid format is there's a very good chance he's not going to make the playoffs, and his season is going to be viewed as a failure. And that really, really stinks, because even though he's had bad luck, essentially the thing I liked about this year is he's not taken himself out of any races. He's not done anything stupid. He's not necessarily had race-winning speed. I don't feel like there was a race that late in the race, he's like, oh, Bubba could really win this. Like, he's got the car and everything. Like, he could drive away with this. That hasn't happened this year yet. We saw it last year at Texas and Talladega, where we had a car late in the race that was capable of winning. We've not seen that yet, so I don't love that. But in terms of him as a driver, he's been phenomenal. What I hate about this format is this season's going to be deemed as a failure. When you look at it on paper, and you look at the point standings, he's in 13th. He is 39 points away from being in the top 10 in regular season points. Under like a Winston Cup format, I believe the top 10 got to go to New York City, and that was seen as a good accomplishment. And it's just really going to be frustrating. Everyone's like, oh, couldn't he make the playoffs when his teammate won the championship? If you were to tell me, hey, your teammate won the championship and you finished 8th or 9th, would you take that? And you're like, yeah, that feels okay. But instead, it's going to be first, and best Bubba can finish is 17th. So I'm going through it. It's just trying to sort of wrap your head around. And yeah, there was a lot left on the table. I think the biggest thing overall is he should probably be, in terms of the regular season standings, probably closer to where Ty Gibbs is. I think you don't have to give him every missed opportunity, but like Carl was saying, you just give him maybe half of those crummy races back and just give him, a top 15 or a top 10. And we're talking, we're in the Ty Gibbs position where you're still a little nervous, but you're not just hoping for something outrageous to happen on a track that isn't necessarily. You don't go into Darlington expecting something outrageous to turn your fortune around. So, yeah. Hopefully I was short enough, but anywho, I'll let Art lift us up.
Oh, I'm not lifting you up. I'm holding your head under the water. What do you mean? No, I feel like we are going through the same scenario we went through last year. So last year, probably a little bit earlier in the season than we are currently, the team was not performing well for the 23. First of all, Tyler, I get this out. Let me get this out of the way. You're great. You're doing great. I don't know why you went down pit road under a red flag and got kicked out the race, but hey, you're great. You're leading the points. I'm rooting for you. I want you to win a title. I legit want you to win a title. But going back to the 23, last year they were down in the bottom half of the points, at bottom half of the top 20, I should say, in points, right? And then they just get super hot. And yes, they didn't get a win, but they got super hot. And then they get into the playoffs and they stay hot. And I think they were like third best, maybe top 5 best playoff performer, like in the first round in terms of points, right? Like he crawled out of that hole to get at 10th place in the points. And if he had any stage points, or he wasn't constantly, 20, 30 points back, like he probably could have made it to the next round. But my point being, that leaves you, I feel like, with an impression that we're almost there. Like we're just, a couple clicks here or there away, and a little bit of luck here or there away from from really dialing this in and like really making a run for, you know, that round of 8, round of 4, whatever, which is, I think round of 8 right now is a realistic ceiling for Bubba right now. So you go into the off season, and there was talk all last year about should they get rid of Booty, and I've been saying that I like Booty. I think him and Bubba mesh well, but I don't think he's getting the most out of the car. So we go into the off season, and they have that same discussion. But you're like, hey, he's 10th in points. Like, you don't get rid of a crew chief when you finish 10th in points, right? You know, playoff run, yada yada. So then they come back this year, and it's kind of the same story, only they heated up earlier in the year. And, you know, they were minus 50 or something, I want to say, after Gateway, New Hampshire. I don't know. There was some race where he was minus 50 on the cut line, like 17th or so in points, and then just get super hot. And I'm sorry, but I want my team to be consistently good versus amazingly hot for a quarter of the season and then kind of treading water the rest of the year. And it sucks because, like, yeah, on paper, this is Bubba's best season. Like, he's already tied his career high in top 5s. He has one fewer top 10 than he did all of last year. He's got fewer DNFs right now. Like, yeah, we still got more races to go, but his racecraft has gotten better. Like, you know, we talked about the road courses at length on here. Like, he's gotten better, but I just feel like this is what you're going to get every year at this point. Like, this is now the second or third year of the Booty Bubba combo. And I just feel like this is what you're going to get, right? They're going to be stagnant, and then they'll get super hot, and they'll have maybe 2 or 3 races where they might have a chance. But I just feel like that's not good enough. And I totally get y'all's argument about like who you're going to get to replace him, right? Like, I was really rooting for that man on the 4 pit box to come over, right? That was what I was hoping for, but that didn't happen for whatever reason. So I don't know who you get. I really don't know. Like, and that's the crux of the issue is like, if you don't have somebody better, you can't make a move. And I get that, and I agree with that. But I just feel like the ceiling for this team is right now, which is being on the fringe. Because yeah, like if they had some better luck, yeah, then of course, like they'd be way better in the points, and I agree with that. But if they had one win in 25 races, you could beat fucking 36 every week. It doesn't matter, right? Like Harrison Burton just showed us that it doesn't matter as long as you get a win. So I don't like the idea of the fact that they're going to get hot for like an 8-week stretch, and that warrants another 36 race season of what we're currently seeing. I just don't think it's good enough currently. And irregardless of if they make the playoffs or not, I feel like that. Now, maybe again, you get like that fool's gold of like, maybe they go, and like you said, it's only 21 points. Like, that's totally doable. I think it's totally possible. It's not minus 51 at this point, but I just feel like you're setting yourself for like this repeated heartbreak of like, oh man, they're really good right now. Like, oh, I'm feeling confident because, you know, we've had this really hot streak for a month and a half. And then like the season starts and they're kind of crap after like the first couple of weeks. Like, remember the first couple of weeks of the season, and they were like 2nd or 3rd in points or something like that because Daytona was good. They had a couple good races. We were like, oh, hot damn,
yeah.
And they're cooking. And then like the spring stretch into the summer, they just fall off like a rock. And yeah, like they've had some bad luck, of course, but you know what? You can make the argument that, well, maybe if they were running 5th instead of 12th, they don't get in that wreck. Or maybe if they're running, you know, 7th instead of 17th at this point, like maybe this wreck doesn't happen. Like the risk of bad luck, I feel like, is really determined on where you are. Like, very rarely does the leader get caught up in somebody's wreck. Very rarely. Does it happen? Yeah. But if you're in the, you know, with the squirrels, as Bubba likes to say, like, you're more likely to get caught up in somebody else's mess. And again, like, I'm not expecting them to go out and get a top 5, 36 races in a row, but I just feel like the weak point on this team the last year and a half has been on top of the box. Like, the pit crew got better. Bubba got better. Do we really think the calls have gotten that much better? I say no. Now, do they have their moments? Yeah. Like, there's been a few times they undercut and make a great call or this or that. But I look online. I've said this on the show multiple times, but like Phil and Sarah, shout out to y'all. They post the audio of Bubba on the radio. I feel like every week I hear him talking about how the car is too tight all race long. Like, all race long. Like, you got to figure out a way to fix that. Like, I don't understand. Like, and I'm not in those conversations. I'm not going to pretend to know. But like, I'm not going to sit here and act like, oh, you know, there's no solution, because every driver is not on the radio crying about or screaming about how tight they are every single week, right? Like, this is not a problem where it's everyone has to deal with it. And like, to me, that shows me that there's some disconnect there. That's the problem. Like, Bubba should have more than one stage win in 2 years, 3 years. Yeah. Like, to me, that's not good enough. And again, like, I don't need you to be Larson or Denny or whoever, you know, dominating the series or getting 4 or 5 wins. But like, the idea that Bubba Wallace doesn't have enough talent to win a race in 2 full seasons, it's been almost exactly 2 years to the day in a couple weeks, or in 2 weeks, to the Kansas win. So you tell me in 2 full years of races, Bubba couldn't win one of them? The talent is there that it's good enough. He's good enough to win one of those races. And I'm not saying like Bubba is perfect. Like, he's made his mistakes as well. Like, because some people think like, oh, you know, I have to support my driver, he never does anything wrong. Like, that's not the case at all. But I'm saying that on a week in, week out basis, I come away often thinking that this car was not good enough. Yeah. And that the driver can only tell you it's too tight. It's plowing tight. It can't rotate in the corner so many times before it's like, okay, well, I keep telling you, you don't change it. So, or it loads off the box and it's not good. So again, I get the argument of like, who do you replace him? I don't know. I wish I had a name. You know, I thought I had one, and then he left to go somewhere else. But I just don't think it's good enough. And it's clear based on Tyler's performance that there have, on average, good enough cars to compete.
Yeah.
And you know, outside of, and this is my last thing, and then I'll let you go, and I'll be done. But outside of like a Daytona or a Talladega, when are the races where we've seen that car lead a bunch of laps? When are the races where we see them late in the race be in contention? And I've said this before on here, but like, you gotta be in the picture, right? You gotta be in that top 5 with like 50 to go to like have a shot, just a shot at winning. And then like, outside of these players, like, they're never there, right? The good runs, you know, Texas you talked about, yeah, that's like one good run. How many good runs has Denny had? And I know Denny's, you know, I think Denny's at top tier. I think he's one of the, you know, most elite in the field. But how many good runs has Denny had this year? Like, I can't list them. But Bubba's like, well, he had one good race, and then last year he had one good race where he had a shot at winning. And it's like, well, when you can start counting them off and you can remember them, there's not enough of them. That's just my opinion on it. So, yeah, you know, I don't want to see people lose their job. I don't want to see people get fired, but like, it's a performance-based job, and I just don't think they're good enough to me.
Jared, I know we're going to jump to LTB. I just want to say real quick, I think that the biggest takeaway for the 23 team needs to be win and win early. You know, I mean, like I said, you know, Tyler wins at I guess it's Talladega was their first win of the season. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, win and win early. You know what I mean? Like I said, the 99-1 Atlanta, they have been, I mean, just out to lunch for 22 weeks at this juncture, and they will be they will have the yellow banner come Watkins Glen. So yeah, I don't know what a crew chief change is going to do. I don't know anything, but I will say that they need to focus on those first 6 to 8 races, knocking out a win there. Whatever you got to do to do that, learn from what you've done the last couple of years, improve on it, and go from there, because that'll solve a lot of these problems. So anyway.
And now for something that brings us more entertainment and smiles. It's time for Lights to Bright. I really hate to kick a man while he's down. He lost his job. I don't know if he's gonna lose his podcast because he lost his job. Especially the people that pay for his podcast, he don't work for them no more because he lost his job. But in my best Bonte voice,
Corla Joy.
Corla Joy.
Jesus Christ! It's sometimes at some point you have to reflect, and I know that Carl's pain point with Corla Joy is that there's no accountability, and you see the product of that week in and week out. No, it ain't me. I ain't do that. No, I got pushed, brother. My brother in Christ.
Bro,
You almost killed somebody last night. Bro. Relax.
I still to this day think about Coda, and he was like, "Yeah, we just got wide there, dude. They're racing in Austin. You were in Houston. It came back on the track. What are you talking about? You know, oh god. And then it's funny that the second week in a row that happens, and it involves a 10 car. Him getting into it with a 10 car is what starts it. So, anyway, yeah, that's rough, man. And somebody said that. I saw somebody say on Twitter that maybe Corey LaJoie isn't that bad. He's just trying too hard. But it's just like, it's like at some point though, that Venn diagram is a circle of trying too hard is being too bad, right? You can try so hard and you suck.
I pray that I get this level of grace at some point in my life, because for you to be this bad at I tell you.
Yeah.
I almost lost my computer just then.
I'm gonna give mine to actually, I was gonna say Corey or Cobb. I'm actually gonna go Race Control for taking out the top 30 in points rule, or NASCAR, I should say, for taking out the top 30 in points rule. And now you have the man who's literally in dead last. This was the equivalent again of the 0-16 team throwing the Hail Mary on the last game of the regular season, and now they get in the playoffs because they caught it. I don't know why y'all ever took that out. That was a bad decision. I pray you fix this playoffs, or just take them out, which I know won't happen, but I can pray that you fix this playoff rules. Because I honestly wanted to be like on cloud 9 after Sunday's race. Like, I really want to be fully like, flowers and sunshine for Harrison, because I like him. And like I said earlier, everything about this race was great, but he's probably going to ruin the playoffs for a lot of more deserving guys. And I know people say, "Oh, it's the system, you got to win." Well, the system's stupid. Okay, it's like let's stop. Let's not act like the system is not the laws of physics, right? Like, it can be changed, right? Let's not act like this is something that there's no agency in changing. So I give it to NASCAR for taking out that one specific rule, which would have eliminated Austin's issue and this one. Mm-hmm. So that's what I got.
Carl. No, let Carl go.
Okay, I got you.
All right, Carl,
so for the first time in podcast history, somebody is getting lights too bright and donkey of the day at the same time, which we've never given that award. But I have to give it to my favorite analyst, Jenna Fryer, because last night she tweeted that she was so glad that Leigh Diffie, like she was congratulating Leigh Diffie on the call to the finish for his first race or whatever the case may be. And somebody with no ill intention in their heart, I will post a picture on the pod tweet account so you can see it, because she's edited the tweet since then. Somebody with no ill intention in their heart said, no, he called a race in 2017. And then she goes, and I quote, "No shit. Thanks for zeroing in on the most pointless part of the tweet. I've clarified what I've meant for you miserable people." I'm sorry, who do you think you are? What are you talking? You are not as important as you think you are. And first of all, it wasn't even meant in malice, bro. So you was mad at something else. Somebody must have got her food order wrong somewhere. She was just pissed off about that. Because what are you talking about? I'm mad all the time. I don't even fire off on Twitter like that. Like, what are you talking about? Like, and then to make matters worse, she copied and pasted that response and responded to like 4 other people with the same thing. I will never in my life ever feel bad for all the times Tony Stewart gave her shit. Jenna Fryer, they could never make me like you. So anyway, that's because I just saw it last night. I was like, are you serious, bro? Anyway, all right.
Peyton, what you get?
This one isn't creative, but the lights are too bright for me. Man, I had a good thing going. Let me explain. Let me give you a little backstory. So I started watching NASCAR 1994. And then I started getting really interested in 95, watching the Cartoon Network car. Watched it all the way till I went to college. We're not going to talk about how long ago that was, but essentially took 4 years off, 4 or 5 years off. Just didn't have time to watch. I get back in 2010, 2011, and went into it because by that point I've been watching F1 consistently for about it, since the early 2000s. Let's call it 2000, 2003 or so. Really dedicated F1 fan, and then getting back in NASCAR because, hey, fun diversion on a Sunday. I won't take it too seriously. We'll just have some fun and take it for what it is because this stuff is kind of stupid. That I did not know how happy I was then when I was just happy-go-lucky. Let's just turn on the race and see what zaniest NASCAR produces, and I'll pull for Jeff Gordon. This will be fun. Man. Why did I allow myself to get wrapped up and highly and heavily invested where each and every week I find myself turning away from the TV wondering what the hell am I doing as a 37 grown-ass man, getting pissed off and getting upset over this sport being so gosh darn stupid, where I sit here after Richmond race and I'm sitting here wondering, what is this sport I'm even watching where half of the fans are like, oh, that's what Dale did. That's what Dale did. As though it's some great thing as we just watched him be a bowling ball through a corner. I'm sitting here wondering, what the hell are we doing with our lives? Then I get to a Monday rained out Michigan race where my whole weekend had sort of been thrown slightly askew because, I plan my weekend around. I'm going to cook dinner while the race is on and we'll serve dinner at the last stage. Oh, no, it gets rained out. So we got that going on, and then sit there and, have a weird day where my driver gets crashed out. And it's just, I had such a good thing going when I had fully admitted that NASCAR is goofy. It's not to be taken seriously because the sport doesn't take itself seriously. It doesn't have any respect for itself because it awards championships in the dumbest way ever. So I don't know why I did not meet the sport where it wants to be, which is not taking it seriously. But hey, here I am getting excited. I wish I had the conviction that our good friend Arthur does, where he is confident that he will not allow himself to make these same mistakes next year.
I got me for 11 races, boy.
I will be here watching every Sunday and Saturday and Friday next year and still getting pissed off wondering why this stuff is not serious because the damn series doesn't take itself seriously, and I know why I am. And you know what? Light's too bright for me getting wrapped up in this stuff every damn week.
It's to the point now where my dad asks me about the race, and I just immediately get irritated. But you know what? Who is really all to blame for this is Brett Griffin. Really, this is all his fault because he was a part of the whole Spingate at Richmond deal 11 years ago, 9 years ago, 12 years ago, whenever 2013 was. And of course, that the fallout from that made them change the playoff metrics to winning you're in instead of, whatever. So I blame Brett Griffin, Michael Waltrip, Rob Kaufman, and Martin Truex Jr. and Clint Boyer. So it's their fault.
And Brett's always on that. Well, our fans deserve sort of change. Our fans deserve less.
Dude,
I listen to our fans. We don't deserve shit.
The fan. What's so funny is like the fans crafted this out, and then I don't know, man. The fans don't deserve anything. People got so in their damn feelings about the Matt Kenseth thing. One day I have to go back and try to see if I can dig up the old episodes of Wind Tunnel because anybody that wasn't around for Wind Tunnel. It was insane how pissed off people were at the way that it panned out or whatever for Matt through the year. And so, I mean, like, there was some very vocal calls for it. And, I don't know. I blame Nextel. I blame everybody. But anyway, that's it for us, I guess. Anything else we got going on?
I was just going to say for open mic, shout out to SVG officially becoming a Cup Series driver. Also, shout out to Dale Jr. relinquishing that 88. So SVG will be rocking the 88 next year. Hopefully, I don't know what charter he's going to drive because NASCAR's still bullshitting about that. But if everything comes to fruition, Shane Van Gisbergen will be in the Cup Series. Otherwise, hell, we'll count on our fingers and toes who shows up for Daytona in February, because it's not going to be nobody at this point. Yeah. Anyway, y'all, thank you for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. We're still 5 followers short.
Don't play poker with me.
Hamilton prize pack. Tell your mammy, tell your Grammy. I don't know why y'all don't want free stuff. Like, literally, I pay postage, we pay shipping, we pay handling, we pay the whole thing. All you have to do is literally press follow on Twitter. I don't know why people don't want free things anymore, but they beg the governments for handouts. I don't understand America. But with that, ladies and gentlemen,
I thought it was Bernie Mac. What the hell?
We see y'all hopefully, prayerfully, in one piece after Darlington.
I almost left the studio.